about how everybody was talking about how after the game, how Dan Mullen was really criticizing the offense. How do you criticize an offense when your quarterback threw for 29 of 47 for 474 yards? But as you were talking about here a moment ago, I mean, they had what multiple 3 4 trips opportunities to score, and they weren't able to. And I mean, what was really the problem?
Well, it was just one of those games. I mean, you have a couple of games where you turn the football over, but we haven't really had it. And we had, as I said, we had 3 turnovers that gave them 10 points. We had 8 trips into the red zone, only scored 3 touchdowns. We had 3 straight drives in the second half that were 3 and outs. I think our last 5 drives of the game were 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, field goal, missed field goal. So that's where he's talking about. Yeah, you look at all the yards we threw for, which is great. But I didn't think we played well as an offense either. And it came back to bite us in the butt. But there ain't a dang thing you can do about it now. You just got to move forward and get ready for Alabama.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Alabama in just a minute, but we have to at least talk about what happened towards the end of the game. The defense has been one of the more critical parts. I mean, a lot of people have been criticizing this defense. Second half, they really started to play together, and it really looked like towards the end of the game that they could hold LSU on that third down play, only to have the shoe incident occur with Marco Wilson. And looking back on it, I think Dan's right. I mean, you can sit here and blame Marco Wilson all you want to. It was a stupid play, but that's not what cost, really and truthfully, that's not what costed the game, because I think what you said at one point during one of your podcast shows, we never should have been in there in the first place.
No, and honestly, I mean, Marco knows he made a mistake. I think everybody does. But for any person that thinks we lost that game because of Marco Wilson is absolutely crazy and needs to really understand what football is all about. It's a team game. You got to take all 3 phases, and we didn't play great in all 3 phases. And, his penalty hurt us, but you got to look at it this way. We had a makeable field goal to tie the game up.
Yeah.
So you don't want to blame your kicker for a missed field goal. It's not Marco. So it irritates the hell out of me when people want to blame it on him. And trust me, the guys in the locker room have his back, and I hope Marco goes out and plays a great game Saturday night.
And, of course, Saturday night, they're going to be taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. For those who are just joining us right now, Shane Matthews, former quarterback for the Florida Gators, who played under the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. And I think you have quite a few great stories you can probably tell us. But let's first talk more about to look ahead to Saturday night. Of course, they're going to play in the SEC championship game. They're going to take on Alabama. Both teams have been in the SEC championship game 13 times, and Florida has won their fair share of them, but Alabama has won quite a few more. A lot of people say that this is going to be a blowout of a game, but Shane, I don't think so. I think this is going to be a much closer game than anybody expects.
Well, I hope you're right. I'm not as confident as you.
Why?
Well, I think Alabama's got the most complete offense I've ever seen in college football, the most balanced. They got a phenomenal kid playing quarterback. They got a tremendous running back and probably the best player in college football at wide receiver. But they got a tremendous offensive line, and they got other skill players that are very, very dominant. So it's going to be a tough task for us. But anything can happen. I mean, again.
Well, look at us. I mean, we as I said in my opening intro, we were expected to come into this game, beat LSU, get ready for the SEC championship game, but boom, all this happens. And as we look back on the game, Kyle Pitts did not play in this game on Saturday night, and everybody's wondering why. I mean, you're down there, you have a feel for what happened. Why didn't Kyle Pitts play in the game?
Well, I don't know.
No.
If the medical people, the doctors and stuff said he can't play, it doesn't matter what a kid says or a coach wants, he can't play. So Kyle Pitts wasn't the reason we lost that game either.
Oh, no.
He would have helped for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And we're hoping he plays against Alabama. But for us to beat them, they're so good on offense. We're going to need a couple of stops. I think we need at least 3 stops in the game where we force a punt or get a turnover. And when we do make those stops or get a turnover, we have got to score points. If we don't do those things, it could be ugly.
Shane Matthews former quarterback for the Florida Gators, and now he has his own podcast show. And for those that don't know about Shane, he used to play in the National Football League. I think he played for like 5 or 6 teams, including 2 stints with the Chicago Bears. As a player, give us an insight to what that was like.
I was fortunate to play 14 years. The average career is 2.5 years of a player. So I didn't play a whole lot. I was on a bunch of teams, but just didn't get a lot of playing time, but I understood my role, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Talk about, and I know times have changed from yesterday to today, but talk about what it took to get into the NFL from the time you left Florida to the time for the NFL draft and all that. What type of process is that like?
Well, it's changed totally different. I mean, I wasn't never drafted, so I went as a free agent. It's definitely different.
Were you expecting that?
No, I was supposed to be the 3rd quarterback taken in about the 2nd or 3rd round.
Well, I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
But things happened, and there was like 12 quarterbacks taken in the draft, and only 3 of us lasted more than like 5 years. So, like I said, just because you're drafted doesn't mean you're going to last in the NFL. There's so many good players that don't get great opportunities. But yeah, I wouldn't trade a thing, and I was very fortunate to play 14 years.
We talk about this game on Saturday night, and you've gone over your keys to the game. Why is Todd Grantham having trouble with this defense? That seems everybody, and including myself, wondering why hasn't this defense got it together?
Well, I think, first of all, we're in the top 3 in the league defensively. I don't think people realize that.
Really?
Yeah, we are. So I think people get concerned when we may not be lined up correctly or running people on or off the field. And I think we play too many players. We rotate our play. We rotate players like every 3 plays. Every series, we have a different secondary. I wish and I hope they will just play our 11 best players. And if a kid gets his feelings hurt because he didn't get any playing time, so be it. If he wants to transfer, let him transfer. I think the way of the world has changed too much. These kids expect to play right out of high school, whereas most kids usually redshirt. And, you can't give them playing time just to keep them happy. So maybe we'll do that against Alabama. I don't know. We'll see.
Is that the reason you talk about rotating in and out? Is that what you're talking about? Not having the same players on the field for a longer period of time? Is that what you're relating to? Not being consistent?
Well, yeah. I mean, we actually do. We rotate our secondary every other series, and the defensive line, depending on the down and distance, certain guys are in. And I just think we need to just put 11 dudes out there and let them go play. When they get tired, then we can make substitutions. But until then, let's play our best 11. That's
interesting because I never really know. I watch it on TV, so I try and focus. I'm not a great football expert like you, but watching it, I never realized that they rotate in and out. That's very interesting. It brings up another question: will Todd Grantham be back next year?
I think he will be.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody, and I want to. Shane Matthews, former quarterback of the Florida Gator, joins us on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. I want to, somebody I think was Monday night during the or Tuesday night during the announcement of the rankings and all. A couple of the announcers were commenting about Dan Mullen and his immaturity. How do you respond to that?
I don't pay attention to that. I like Dan. I think he's done a tremendous job.
I think so too. I mean, that's what. But
people are always gonna, when you lose a couple of games, they're gonna nitpick here and there. Trust me, Dan doesn't care what national media has to say.
I don't think he does either. I mean, did you see his SEC press conference today?
I did not.
Okay. Okay. Well, he spoke on the media today, and then later on, Nick Saban came. It was basically just your standard press conference. Somebody came out and said that Mullen guaranteed a victory, which I never heard him say that. I don't think Dan would even come out and say that. So I don't know, but that's just interesting that somebody would come out and say that. But Dan looked kind of like a bit dazed a little bit, because considering what happened yesterday with recruiting and getting ready for a game, I think he was being pulled more ways than you could imagine. Speaking of recruiting, how do you think we did with the recruiting yesterday?
I don't follow it very closely because I don't know a whole lot about the guys, but apparently we did pretty well. I mean, I think we're fifth or sixth ranked in the
seventh.
In the country, which seventh.
Seventh, yeah.
Pretty good.
Oh, I think it's excellent, especially when you consider, their ability to recruit the guys. They got 1 5-star, several 4-star players. I think Dan did very well. Okay, Saturday night, give us 3 keys that we should be watching for in the game. If you had to pick 3. If you had to pick, okay, 1 or 2. 1 or 2.
Well, the only way we can win this game, in my opinion, is as I said earlier, Alabama's got to turn the football over. We got to make at least 3 stops where they get no points. They punt it to us, or we get turnovers. And if those things happen, when we get stops or turnovers, we have got to score points.
And then take advantage to the momentum, which I think is going to be key. So you played with Steve Spurrier as the quarterback, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't you? Was Spurrier your coach the whole time you were there?
Yes. Well, my last 3 years, 1991.
99. What was he like as a coach?
Oh, he's awesome to play for. Great coach, great teacher. Just a guy that was a lot of fun to play for.
Was he a demanding kind of coach, or was he like, you do your thing, I'll support you, but if you screw up, I'm going to get on your butt?
Oh yeah, he's very demanding, and he would get on your butt, but that's what good coaches do.
Right. That's interesting. Well, listen, I know you got to go. I know you got an interview that you have coming up. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to join me today, my friend. And hopefully down the road we'll talk a little bit about bowl games here. So, okay?
Sounds good, my man. Take care.
Shane, thank you very much.
Yep.
Bye-bye. That is Shane Matthews, the former quarterback of the Florida Gators, taking his time out of the day to join me here on the Animal Football Insider. Yours truly, the Animal, joining you. Let me get this removed here. Okay, and now I'm going to do this right here real quick. I got to do some technical things, So overall on the day, Trask, 29 of 47, 474 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day, but threw 2 very costly interceptions for the team, and they just got bogged down. So it was a tough loss for the Gators, and it was quite a game. Let's see. Chat room. Kyle McGraw-Long joins me. She said Alabama has only won 1 more than Florida. I think you're right. Let's see here. Another comment. Tyreek Sapp signed. Warren Sapp's nephew. If you can find out for me, Kyle, who he signed with, that would be great. Let's see here. Can you tell me SOS? I would have no idea who that is. So if you can point that out for me, that'd be great. And Vince Gerasi just points out to me, it says, great interview. Well, I don't know about that, but, I'll take it as it goes. So now the Florida Gators are going to be taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide Saturday night. I believe it's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central Time, and was supposed to be joined by James Ludeman again a little bit later on in the broadcast. Maybe we'll get an Alabama perspective of things during the course of the game. He said SOS brother Graham passed away earlier this week. So I'd like to know our condolences go out to him and what have you. So that is the tidbit on the Florida Gators. And as we get ready to turn our attention to another side, my good friend James Buck Wilson joins me on. Steven Spurrier's brother. Okay, all right. Kyle just pointed out a moment ago that the Spurrier's brother Graham passed away earlier this week, so I doubt it will see him at the SEC championship game. But who knows what to expect? James Buck Wilson joins us on this edition of the Animal Football Insight as we are ready for the Bucs and their game this weekend. We'll talk more about that in just a minute, but I want to get your thoughts first on what we saw Saturday night with the Gators. And I'm just baffled why somebody would want to throw a shoe.
You know what? I'm going to say that what a lot of the points that Shane said. I'm here in the sort of like the green room, and I'm watching and listening, and I'm just like, you're absolutely so right. You know what? You look at what Wilson did, and you know what? Who throws a shoe? It was a stupid decision. It was in the heat of the moment. You know what? The kid's probably never going to do anything like that ever again. It was an awful moment. It was a teaching moment. I'm pretty sure he's going to learn from it. But,
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, but you know, you can't say like ultimately that was the reason that the Gators lost on Saturday night.
Oh no,
there was just too many disjointed moments. And well, I said to you in the week, like a few people saw it come in. There were, yes, as Shane correctly points out, the Gators are like the third overall in defense, but there's just something about them where they don't pass the eye test. And I think that Shane was absolutely right when he said it's the over-rotation of players. When you have sort of like an established core of about 15 to 16 players who are, you know, they are the starters and they are the rotation people, the sort of like 1.5 in the depth chart. And those guys come in, but there are so many people who are coming in that, you know what, this isn't your year. Sit down, learn a little, and you know, as people as well as Shane said, if it hurts your feelings, it doesn't matter. Okay, what matters is how the team plays, and if you're not quite ready to play at the level that is expected of the Florida Gators, then you shouldn't be getting significant playing time. And I think that this is one of the things that does actually hurt the team. When we saw it a lot on Saturday night, there's a lot of rotation around trying to keep guys fresh. I totally understand that. And you've had like issues with like people pulling up in practice. You've got the ever-present danger of COVID. You need to make sure that your squad is ready and available to play. But you don't, like, you know what, Todd, you don't need to be reaching that deep into the barrel. And I think ultimately that's what did for the Gators in the end.
And I think Shane is right about that because I'm watching again. I mean, as a fan watching the game, I'm not noticing that the people specifically that are in during the course of a game. So Shane's right. I mean, if they're rotating that secondary every 3 series and what have you, they're not getting any consistency, which could be one of the problems and why this defense is not getting it together. But the thing really irks me, James, more than ever, is when you see, and I don't know how much you watch the Florida Gators play, but a lot of times you see these guys coming out, moving left and right, trying to figure out where they're supposed to be. You're in week 11 now. You're in week 14, whatever it is in college football. You better know where you're playing. I think that goes back to coaching. Now, you may have a different viewpoint of that.
I'd say there's Yes, it is absolutely down to coaching, because ultimately the coach is responsible. That's where the buck stops. But then again, like as my wife, who is a teacher, will explain, like, you know what, I can explain it for you, but I can't understand it for you. And I think that's some of the problem that we've got going on with some of the players as well. Is the coaches are doing everything they can, but some of the players are just not getting it. These are the players that are still getting significant I know we spoke about this earlier in the week. There are still players who clearly are not getting it, whatever's going on, because you can see it on game day that they are not up to speed, but they are receiving significant playing time. And frankly, I don't understand. I understand where some of the confusion comes from. If you're in a play, out 2 plays, in a play, out 5 plays, in 2 plays, out 10 plays. I totally understand that, because there is, especially playing defense, there is a certain rhythm and a routine that you know what's coming, you know where you should be, and you're not thinking about it. You're just going out and playing on instincts within the scheme that has been created. You know your job, you know your role, you go out and execute. Unfortunately, with all the rotation that's going on here, maybe Todd isn't getting the message through to his players. And if he isn't, then he needs to think how he can change that message. But to me, it has to start right away with, against Alabama. You cannot continue to rotate the team the way it has been rotated and expect to have a consistently excellent defensive performance. If you look at this defense, and as I've said, it constantly fails the eye test. And the reason for it is lack of consistency. They have the talent. They can be a dominant defense schematically. There is nothing wrong with the nuts and bolts of this defense. What is wrong with it is the complete lack of chemistry between any of the levels, from the front 7, the defensive backs. Neither know what each other are doing. They don't know who's helping them. They don't know when they're being helped, when they're not being helped. We've seen players, actually, we've seen the cornerbacks this year be suddenly left on an island when they were expecting to have support.
Exactly.
And they get burnt for a long touchdown. And as you say, we're quite a few weeks into the season now, and
you should know where you're playing. You should know where you're playing at.
Exactly. You can't have the excuse that, well, oh, you know what, this guy doesn't have a lot of playing time. They all get a lot of playing time, more than they should, some of them.
Right. No, I agree. And look, it's, I mean, it just boggles my mind as to the way Grantham is running this defense. I'll disagree with Shane on this point. I don't think Todd Grantham will be back this year. But
really,
I think there's just too much that's been going on. I mean, think about this for just a minute. All right. And I got the numbers here. They gave up 239 yards passing, and I'm trying to look at the rushing game. Rushing yards, 196 yards. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that maybe I used to be of the mindset that Grantham just needs to go, but now that I'm hearing about all this, from an expert like Shane Matthews and all, I don't know. I still think that a change at coaching and defensive coordinator, but we'll see what happens. And of course, Saturday night is going to be big when they take on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday night's going to be huge for a lot of people, players and personnel.
Huge. Hey, listen. Let me tell you what we got going on. Let me tell you what's going on here. Okay. By the way, James Buck Wilson is joining us on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. And, at some point during our telecast, we kind of go over some of the games that's going to happen this week. Okay, are you ready for us? 2020 has been an oddball year, right?
Yeah, I'll be glad when it's over, actually.
Me too.
I think we need a mulligan on this year.
Wait, okay. We had the SEC championship game playing Saturday night, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. At ESPN, 12 noon, Texas A&M will be taking on Tennessee. That's an SEC game. Okay, what are you doing playing an SEC game when the SEC championship game is on that night? Gee, it's just. I mean, I look at that and like unbelievable. But I mean, we say that it's huge because from this standpoint, not only does Alabama play, but we have a big game, the ACC championship game, in which Clemson versus Notre Dame are going to be playing 3:00 Eastern time on ABC. And as we get ready for that game, the people who are running the college football playoffs have got to be steaming that this game even is taking place.
I don't know. As I say, I just think it I think a lot of sports actually epitomize how 2020 has been. I mean, let's look here. We've got like LSU Tigers, they're not even ranked. The victory against Florida actually on Saturday was the fourth victory of the year. This isn't a bad team. You look at the team in Louisiana. It's not a bad team, but you know what? It's just not worked for them this year.
No, and one of the things that we forgot to mention, and let's keep this in mind as we go through this broadcast here tonight, that a lot of it at the game Saturday. I mean, Pitt's not playing. It was foggy as the game went on during the course of the night, which made it for some weird things happening. Then, of course, the shoe being thrown. It just beyond me. That was just unbelievable.
It's just been one long full moon this year.
Oh, my gosh. And believe me, I'm ready for a new moon to occur. Make no mistake about it. Take a little sip of water, and we'll be right back with you in just a minute, okay? And so now what we're going to do, we're going to switch off. They're done. We talked about the big game Saturday night. Now let's put on and talk about the team that we really love, and that is these boys here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last Sunday afternoon was the first game back since their infamous break, if you want to call it. And the Buccaneers, wow, did they put on a show? Even though it didn't start off on the right foot, Buccaneers were able to come back and defeat the Minnesota Vikings. And what was it, 24? I don't even have the final score of the game. What the heck's wrong with me, James? Let's see here.
What was 26 to 14?
Yeah, 36 to 14.
26 to 14. 26 to 14.
26 to 14, yes. 26 to 14 was the final score as the Florida Gators, Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to defeat the Minnesota Vikings. And wow, James, as we'll come back to you in just a minute, as soon as you get your audio things worked out. For the Bucs, though, they had a rough going at the beginning of the game. They only controlled the ball for only 5 plays in the first quarter. And you would think, well, this might be a runaway. But the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, they put a pretty good game plan together as Brady went 15 of 23 for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day, including a nice 48-yard touchdown pass to Scotty Miller, who now has starting to become a factor with this offense. I'm so excited about the Buccaneers. I'm messing things up, James. You need to help me take over here, buddy. It was an exciting game. Whoa, well, hang on. Go ahead.
There we go.
No, it's
okay. I didn't take myself off mute. Yeah, you look at the game on Sunday, and it was another perfect example of the Buccaneers starting slowly, not making adjustments in time, and then eventually actually getting into the swing of things and then becoming dominant. I mean, what was it? 23 unanswered points after going down.
Yeah.
Like a significant margin. But it was one of those games that must have been horrible for a neutral to watch, because as soon as the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles realized what Minnesota were doing. They came out to control the clock. Like when you've got a running back sitting down in the middle of the field after getting a first down, it becomes a little bit obvious that actually, these people have come in here and they want to control the ball. They want to control the clock. Great. What we need to do is get them off the field, and we need to get on and score quick points if we can, or see if we can extend drives. Now, the Buccaneers weren't able to get long drives going.
No.
They on their scoring drives, they were actually, they were on and off within a couple of minutes. And you look at some of the Minnesota drives, were going on for 7, 8, 9, etc. minutes. They were taking out huge chunks of the clock. In fact, they had the ball for just over 30 minutes of the game. So that should tell you that they've obviously kind of won the time of possession battle. But you look at actually what they did with it, and it wasn't a great deal. Kirk Cousins was sacked 6 times. There was 2 fumbles, one of which was recovered by the Tampa defense. Their kicker left 10 points on the field. Ultimately, actually, it wouldn't have changed anything because the game would have actually finished to a score of 26-24 in favor of the Buccaneers. So right. You know what? I'm sure Minnesota fans are actually like crying about their kicker, but no, you can't have this one, Minnesota. Your kicker didn't blow you the game. That's something that the Buccaneers have, like an exclusive monopoly over. This kicker's blowing games.
And as we look back over the game and the context that took place, I'm looking at the ball possession and drive chart here, and my alcohol stained hands here, so dilly. They never got. Let's see here. They never got the ball to like 4:58 to go in the first quarter, and they only had 8 plays and had to punt the ball. But then second quarter they started to get things rolling, and then Scotty Miller with that 50-yard touchdown reception. Kudos to Scotty Miller. I'm so happy for him the way he played.
Yeah, and this is something that I know like confused you, it confused me, and actually it confused every single Buccaneers fan that I actually spoke to. Like if we're able to get James Liedman on later on, we could actually ask him, and you might need to mute his response just in case there are young people watching, because nobody understood how Brady had this connection with Scotty Miller, like calling him Scooter and saying that, he was this amazing player, great hands, great route running, great speed. And then he was taken out of the offense. And it was like, well, do you not want to win games? Are we now tanking for Trevor because we've left it a little bit late if we have?
No. They're not tanking for Trevor. They're tanking for Kyle. Okay, because I'm here to tell you right now, Kyle Trask is going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. You mark my words. But go ahead.
If we pick him up in the second round somewhere, I'll be happy with that. I think that Kyle Trask has got a great amount of potential. I know we've spoken about this on the show before, but I think Kyle Trask has got a lot of potential, and he should be one of the top 5 quarterbacks taken off the board. Whether or not the Bucs take him, they might have to take him in the first round if they really want him, and that for me would be a little bit of a reach.
Well, it is going to be a reach because Trask, in my opinion, is no better than probably a third round. And you want my honest opinion, I think the best thing for Trask will be to do, and he can't do it, by the way, because the NCAA has granted players another year of eligibility due to the COVID. If I'm Kyle Trask and I'm being told that I don't have a great arm, why not stay another year? Why not work on that and improve that? Let me just run over some stats with you about him. He's had 3,700 yards on the year. Let's see here. He's had 400-plus yards passing games this year. He's a fourth SEC quarterback to do so since 1996, and he and Danny Wolf, former Gator grade, also are the only two quarterbacks in Gator history with 400-plus yards games. So, I mean, the stat numbers and the way he's been playing tells me that this guy is going to be an outstanding player in the league.
Mhm.
But if I'm Kyle Trask and I'm being told I'm not going to go no higher than the third round, why not come back to Florida for the senior year? I mean, but that's just me, and might get James Ludeman's take on that. Just texted me a moment ago. He's supposed to join us here in just a couple of minutes on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. Scotty Miller had 2 receptions. He was targeted 2 times on the day. He only caught 1 pass, 48 yards, which I believe was a touchdown. I'm not sure on that, but you might be able to quote me on that. Actually, the
It
pass
certainly was.
Brady did not have a great day yards wise. I mean, 15 of 23 for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day, no INTs, people, none. And when you look at that, I mean, that's really what you want during the course of a game.
Yeah, I think as well, like a lot of people are sort of looking at like the Brady stats from Sunday and going, oh, well, he didn't even pass for 200 yards and, well, he didn't do this. It's like, well, actually, do you really, really want to have to rely on your quarterback being like in Hall of Fame mode every single week? Because I know I don't. Sometimes I would like to be in control enough in a game where the defense keeps the other team's offense quiet and keeps them off the board. And then, you know what? If the other team want to have long drives that take 7-10 minutes off the clock, great, go for it. If they're not scoring touchdowns on those drives, that actually works perfectly in the Bucs' favor. If they're coming out and they're having a 3 to 5 minute drive and they score a touchdown, I'm totally okay with that. If the Bucs are controlling the game enough that actually Ronald Jones has run over 100 yards and scored 3 touchdowns, and Brady didn't throw over 100 yards at all, and the defense came out and came back with turnovers, interceptions, you know what? Individual player stats aren't going to look great. But when you look at the scoreboard and it says 42-17, you go, oh, well, actually. And there's been a lot of it this year, actually. And I kind of, I've sort of touched it in other avenues that I'm involved in. And if you went to Bucs fans, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan community and said, hey, after this season, if you went to them like at preseason before any games had been played, and you said, you know what, the Bucs are going to finish 11-5, but you know what, some games they won't look great. 99% of fans would take that. They wouldn't even listen to the alternative. And then if you turn around and said, you know, they might go 7-9 or 8-8, but they're going to look great in every single game, but they'll miss the playoffs.
Right.
You know, I would much rather have a team that wins ugly some weeks, but is 11-5, than a team that looks like it should be winning a Super Bowl, but can't win more than 8 games in a year.
Exactly.
So, you know what? It's fans have to, and this isn't me turning around and saying, "Oh, you can't talk about the game or you can't express what you're disinterested in, like or dissatisfied in." Sorry, then you know what? That's great. Talk about it. Say what's on your mind, but don't confuse having an issue with play calling with being unhappy with how the team is playing. I myself have a huge issue with how the game is being called sometimes, and that's from both coaches. Sometimes I have not a clue what Todd Bowles is thinking in a situation, or Byron Leftwich.
I know. I know. It's like, you know, I mean, it's just amazing to me to see, you know, some of the calls that they made early on, and it's just amazing to me about it. Ooh, you know what? This is Buccaneer related. Yesterday we had, for those that don't know, early signing day period. got underway yesterday, and we talked about that with Shane Matthews. Gators have the seventh best recruiting class in the country, and heads up to Dan Mullen. But here's something that Kyle McGraw Long wrote. Tyreek Stapp signed with the Gators out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Now, why do we mention about Tyreek Cap? Because he's the son of a famous defensive player for the Buccaneers. Can you tell me?
Well, he's Warren Sapp's nephew. He's not his son; he's his nephew.
Oh, yes, you're right. His nephew.
He carries the family name because I admit I was confused at first when I saw that. I was like, wait a second. Yeah. So Tyreek Sapp has signed with the Florida Gators.
Right.
He comes from obviously like people actually forget that Warren Sapp is not the only athlete in the family. There's lots. Have a look at like documentaries that Warren Sapp's been in, or look at the football life that he did. He doesn't obviously go into a lot of details. There are allusions there as well, but you know what? He's not the only athlete in his family. He does come from a very talented from an athletic point of view family. So you know what? I think Tyreek's going to be great. I think he's going to have to learn. He's going to have to take a little bit of time, and you know what? I'm interested to see what he can do. The biggest thing, I'm glad that he didn't go to the Yankees because he would not have been able to shake off that reputation.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how well he plays. Might want to I don't know what's wrong with your mic, but yeah, nevertheless, I never knew
with the mic.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
So, I mean, I look at it and I never knew that he had a football genes within the family. I'll have to take a look at that sometime. But I found that to be interesting about Tyreek Sapp signing on with the Florida Gators. So now the Buccaneers, back to the Buckets now. They take on the Atlanta Falcons this coming Sunday in Raymond James Stadium. And as we take a look at the injury report, I can't bring it up, but I had it here a moment ago. Several players for the Falcons are really banged up. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players. They include Darqueze Dennard, Alex Mack, center for Calvin Ridley, wide receiver. He's been limited in his play. So the Falcons are really banged up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, how the Buccaneers are able to capitalize on it. But you know what? We're always ready to capitalize when we have this man come on board. You saw him last week in his car. Now he's in his home, ladies and gentlemen, from the state of Alabama. None other than James Luneman with Tide 100.9. So glad that you could join us tonight. I think you know that guy right there up to your left. Some guy named Britt Buck. You ever heard of the guy? Something like that.
He looks familiar. It's been a while.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it has been a while. So James, thank you for taking time out to join me here tonight. And we're going to talk a lot about Buccaneer football, but of course, the Gators are taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're up there in Alabama, and that situation. Nick Saban met the media today. Didn't say anything that was out of the ordinary. Give us a sense of what's going on with the team right now.
Well, they're preparing the best way they can, getting ready to go to Atlanta. They'll be headed out tomorrow, and it was cool to see the equipment truck today, getting all loaded up. That was pretty fun to watch. But they're getting ready to go to Atlanta. They'll have a practice on tomorrow afternoon, I believe, right around 5 or 6. They'll have a walk through the stadium tomorrow, and then of course Saturday they'll take on the Florida Gators. And really nothing different from Nick Saban today. I was really happy to be a part of that Zoom call with Dan Mullen, Nick Saban, and Greg Sankey, who's the commissioner of the SEC. And so that was a lot of fun to get to be a part of that conversation. But you're right. I mean, it's the Nick Saban way. He's not gonna, he's not gonna sound arrogant. He's not gonna open his mouth and say things that are ridiculous, like Dan Mullen did today, saying he's gonna definitely win and beat Alabama, which is, I'm sorry, not gonna happen. So as a former Gator fan, which I still am, of course, and
I get it. But now,
Yeah.
you on the
It's
Zoom
just
call?
business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You on the Zoom call today with Dan Mullen as well? Somebody claimed that Mullen guaranteed a win, but I didn't hear this. I don't know whether you did or not. Did you?
So I don't know if I would use the word guarantee, but what he did say was the question was brought to him that said, what are you guys going to do after Saturday if you beat Alabama and should you be in the college football playoff discussion with 2 losses but a win over Alabama? And his response wasn't anything that I was expecting, although it is Dan Mullen, so I should have probably expected it. But his response was, "We'll figure that out after we win," and that was the end of it. That was the end of the question. Just move right on.
Okay. Okay. I thought that.
Yeah, I would say he didn't so much say I guarantee we're gonna win, but he said it in a way that was just very arrogant to me, and that's just who Dan Mullen is. I mean, Dan Mullen's he's been that guy at Mississippi State. He's been that guy even at Florida. Same guy who wore a Darth Vader outfit to Halloween Zoom call. And listen, I love Dan Mullen. I don't think Dan Mullen gets enough respect for how good of a coach he is, but it was a little much today saying we'll talk to you after we win because first of all, the Gators are underdogs in this game, and secondly, there's not, in my opinion, there's not enough talent for the stop Mac Jones, Devontae Smith are going to do offensively.
Right, and I heard that part of the press conference. So if that's what they're talking about, I think they're making a big deal out of it. But you mentioned about Dan Mullen and immaturity during the college football show on Tuesday. People have come out and criticized Dan Mullen for his quote immaturity, which I thought was stupid at best.
I don't think he's immature. I think Dan Mullen expects greatness out of his team, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just always interesting to me to go from a coach like Nick Saban who expects the process to be done, who expects greatness but in a quiet way. He's not a controversial kind of coach. He's going to tell you the way it is. If there's something that's going on that on the field that he's not happy with, he'll tell you he's not happy with it. And he's very honest and open about that. But for Dan Mullen, it kind of just seems like I feel like over the last week, Dan Mullen has done nothing but give Alabama bulletin board material to use for Saturday. And, that could either be a really good thing or the Gators could really be motivated and come out and make this a close game. But after that game last week against LSU, I don't see it. I don't see how they're going to compete. I don't see how they're going to win this game, first of all. But at this point, I don't see them winning or losing by no less than 17. I mean, there's just no way.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a shoe-in for them. So, no. That's okay. You didn't get it. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I got it. I'm still stunned. That's why I didn't react to it.
And I think a lot of people in Gator Country are actually stunned by that. I mean, if Marco had picked up the shoe and thrown it to the ground or handed it back to the guy, okay, you can see that. Maybe thrown it a yard or two, maybe that. But to pick up a shoe and throw it 20 yards down the field, I mean, I just think that
Brett Buck will appreciate this, what I'm about to say. Who throws a shoe? Honestly. Who throws a shoe?
Who throws a shoe? Who throws the shoe?
Honestly. That hurt.
What got me, though, about that whole situation is when Dan Mullen, and, I totally agree with you about his typical bravado. It's just bulletin board material. But it's just when Dan Mullen turned around and said, it was a football move. I I've played football myself. I've watched football for a lot of years. Not once have I ever seen throwing a shoe be part of the game. It's just, no. I explain to my wife on a regular occasion on Sundays when she sees some guy being pulled down by his dreadlocks. She's like, that really isn't fair. And I'm like, no, that's part of his equipment. He wears his hair like that. He understands what the rules are. Okay? He knows that Derrick Henry can be dragged down by that weird ass ponytail thing that he's got there. And you know what? It's totally in the rules. However, I don't understand how Wilson was trying to tackle a player who had already been tackled by throwing his shoe 40 yards. I don't know. Is he auditioning to be like Kyle Trask's understudy at this point? Is he just showing that he has the ability to get a shoe 40 yards downfield?
You know what, James, Britbuck, I have no idea why he did it, and I don't even know why. I mean, if I was a coach and I had seen that, I would have sat him down and I would have said, you're sitting down the next game. You need to pay for what you've done. I would not necessarily ban him from the game, but at least I wouldn't start him. But that just me.
No. I'm completely opposite. I'm cutting him. I'm serious. Listen, that play, they had just stopped LSU on third down. And if that play doesn't happen, it's fourth down. LSU's punting the ball. Because of that one penalty, they moved the ball down the field and scored on a 57-yard field goal in college.
Look.
There's nothing that makes that play okay. And until Dan Mullen admits that, which he's not going to do, then that's the problem. That's terrible.
But see, I'm gonna take, and I after it happened, yeah, exactly. And after all that happened, I was kind of like agreeing with you a little bit. But the more I stop and think about it here for just a minute, honest and truthfully, the Gators never really should have been in that position because of the stagnant play of the offense. I mean, it was not the offense that we expected the Gators to play against LSU. So there's plenty of blame to go around, okay? And you're right. The heat of the moment never should have happened. I'll agree with you there. I
think he needs a good chewing for that.
I think he did. Well, yeah, and I'll tell you what. Something tells me come Saturday night, he may have the biggest game of his life. I don't know. It's just something that tells me that he's going to have a big game.
Listen,
he has got a lot to make up for.
This is the same thing I say about the Bucs. I'm telling you, if I were the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would have cut Donovan Smith 9 weeks ago. I'm telling you, I don't have any room.
That long ago?
If I'm a coach of a team, and you are constantly making mistakes that cost your team yards, first downs, and points, you're gone. I don't play that game.
But I agree with you. But you know what? Can you honestly say that Donovan Smith has been playing some darn good ball here lately? He's been actually getting his act together. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I mean, hey,
I think Ronald Jones and Gronk have been hiding a lot of Smith's defects. If, in fact, this is probably one for all like the all 22 addicts out there, like myself, like Mr. Ludeman here with me. Now, if you look at the play of Donovan Smith, for the first part of the season, he wasn't trusted to block anybody on his own. No. He had somebody with him. He had Gronk, he had O'Clair. Sometimes he had Tanner Hudson out there. I don't know why. Occasionally Cameron Brate was out there. Sometimes there was Joe Haig as an extra tackle on that side, because he was given help, because teams knew that he wasn't actually very good and they started targeting him. Then teams were like, you know what, he's got help, let's try the other side. And then they stopped covering Donovan Smith, but he kept making the mistakes. And you look at the 3 or 4 games that he was absolutely pants. He was a revolving door, a tackle dummy would have been more effective at times than Donovan Smith was. Now, you look at those and he has no help. Soon as the coaches have realized that he's actually needing help, and he's got the tight end out there. He's got Ronald Jones helping like with the blocking. He's looking a lot better because he's getting help. I've said this to anybody who will listen to me. Ronald. I'm just going to rewind. Donovan Smith was projected when he was drafted as either a right tackle or a guard. He was projected not to be, he had too many things to work on to be a great left tackle in the NFL. Yet he's being treated as a great left tackle in the NFL by the Bucs organization, and I just don't understand it. We saw Tristan Wirfs, when Donovan Smith was injured, have to fill out onto the left-hand side. He looked really, really good out there because he has the footwork, he has the strength, he has the athleticism, and he's got the football IQ to do it. I think the Bucs need to, Arians needs to say, flip him around and let's see what happens. See if Smith is any better on the right, if he can actually do that a little bit better than blocking for the quarterback's blind side. Because you can see that Brady doesn't trust him either. And I don't care what's being said. Tom Brady...
That's an interesting analysis about Donovan Smith, trying to push him to the right side. Maybe that improve it. I don't know. Speaking of Ronald Jones, by the way, Jones has been diagnosed with COVID-19. They don't know, but it's on the reserve list. So we don't know if Ronald Jones is going to be playing in Sunday's game against the Atlanta Falcons, which I believe is in Atlanta. So we're going to be keeping our eyes on that.
He is due to obviously submit to COVID testing tomorrow, which is when I believe the decision will be made as to his potential availability for that game. He's just had an operation on his pinky finger as well. Yes, and this is something like, obviously, before I have to go, that I definitely want to say to obviously you guys and your listeners, this game against Atlanta isn't just another divisional game, etc., etc. This is actually the most important game now of the Buccaneers season, because everyone's sort of taking for granted what's going to happen. Oh well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, etc., etc. Crazily enough, the Bucs have actually got a chance to finish at 11-5.
Not only that, if Minnesota loses this weekend and the Bucs win, they have a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you know what? I love playing with the ESPN playoff machine. There is actually there's two scenarios where the Buccaneers will actually get the number one seed in the playoffs and the bye. But of course, it depends on New Orleans, Los Angeles, the Rams, Green Bay, and Seattle all going on losing streaks to end the season. It isn't exactly very probable, but what? It's a fun scenario to discuss.
You know what? All I care about is this: if they get into I don't care if they get number one seed or not. As long as they get into the playoffs, it'll be the first time that they've gotten into the playoffs since 2009. I mean, and that's pretty remarkable for Bruce Arians and what he's done.
That's a really long time.
And that was when Jeff Garcia was the quarterback.
Jeff
Jeff Garcia.
Who?
He had slightly less hair than you, James.
I don't think he had as much.
But go ahead, James.
So we look at, obviously, like people say, oh well, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. My biggest pet peeve from Bucs fans right now is when they turn around and go, oh well, maybe we should lose a game and then we play Washington. It's like, hang about. If you want to be Super Bowl champions, you can't hide away from the bad teams. At some point, you are going to have to be a good team. It's probably going to be Kansas. Let's be honest. The Super Bowl is probably going to be against Kansas. Sneaky dark horse for me is the Bills.
Really?
Really good.
They actually, I think they're the best team in football right now. When you look at how they're playing and who they're playing, they've actually played one of the strongest schedules in football. In fact, they have, out of all winning teams, they've played the strongest schedule. So technically, they're the best team in football right now. But if the Bucks are going to go there,
see, here's the thing for me. I don't. Everybody is basing this season on an NFC championship or a Super Bowl. I mean, even when we did set the sails, we would ask people all the time, where do you think this season's going to go? And the response more than not was, well, I think they'll get to the playoffs, but I don't know how much more than that. Unless you were Ruth the Truth, who's just, Super Bowl, whatever. But and I love
she
her.
is a Cowboys fan, so we love it a bit. But
I love Ruth the Truth, don't get me wrong. But to me, I think we're seeing exactly the team that we thought. A lot of people,
who we thought they were.
No, well, it's true. James, you remember how many people did we talk to pick 10-6, 11-5? That was us.
Yeah.
We were all on that bandwagon. Yeah. And for the Bucks to be sitting, the Bucks to be sitting, what is it, 9-4? Was it 9-4 right now, or 8-4?
9-5.
9-5. Okay, so 9-5. I mean, with 3 games to go, 2 out of those 3 are going to be against the Falcons, who are absolutely
9-4.
9-4. That's right. So 100% beatable, and then you have the Lions, who are also 100% beatable. Both quarterbacks that we're going to play these last 3 weeks, Matthew Stafford,
8-5. 8-5.
8-5.
Okay,
I've just checked. We are 8-5.
So the Bucks could finish the season 11-5. Yes, they're going to have to play on the road regardless, and that's the only way. The only way they don't play on the road somehow is if the team below us ends up winning, because I don't see us getting out of that fifth. We're in, I think, 5th right now. Are we in 6th?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, we keep jumping between 2 because of tiebreakers and things.
Right. So
things fall the way they are right now. I think the Buccaneers will end up with 5 or 6 seed.
They would be, because the Seahawks are at 5, and they're just ahead of us. And then the Rams, we would play the Rams in the first round, which I actually like that matchup a heck of a lot more than possibly having to go to Washington and play. Because people could say whatever they want about the NFC East, but Washington is really good right now. And I'm not just BSing that. Ron Rivera has done a great job getting this team back to, at least being competitive. And it's really their division at this point.
And
you look at Alex Smith as well.
Yeah. And seeing Chase Smith play, he just scares me. Chase Young. He's a ball player, no doubt. Raiders 17-10 halftime over the Raiders, and saw a clip where Derek Carr went into the locker room with a groin injury, so doubtful that it's going to return in the game.
Who's the backup for the Raiders? It's Mariota. It's Mariota.
Yeah, Mariota. Yeah, Marcus Mariota. Wow. We're seeing highlights of him right now. 17-10 Chargers over the Rams. So that could be interesting too. Seeing if Mariota can do something with that team. We got about a couple of minutes left here before we go, James. You're there in Alabama, Auburn. We talked about last week about the future of Gus Malzahn. It became official. He's gotten a copy of the home game. What's the latest with the Auburn situation?
Well, they beat Mississippi State, and then he was fired the next day. And interestingly enough, this team, the university, owes him $21 million. And on top of that, they're going to have to pay him $10 million of that by the end of next week. And then they'll have to pay him out for the rest of however long the contract was. So if I'm Gus Malzahn, I'm doing the happy dance, doing the happy dance right now because he's getting paid to basically sit at home. So interestingly enough, I actually thought he would have been a really good candidate for the Vanderbilt job, but they've already hired I think it was he was a defensive coordinator somewhere. I can't remember where he was a defensive coordinator at now, but they just hired him. And but anyway, in Auburn, they put this together. They put together this committee to try to figure out who they're going to hire. Kevin Steele is kind of the emerged as the leader. Yeah, and to be honest, nobody in Auburn wants that. I think, I nobody in Auburn really wants it.
Maybe they would like to have Pat Dye Jr. back. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know who the heck they want at this point, but they put together this committee to try to find them, and I honestly don't. And it would be really Auburn to do this too, and you know it because you've been a Gators fan for forever, I'm sure. This would be the most Auburn thing to do if they hired Kevin Steele, because they would not have tried to go out and get a big name. Because here's the thing, what person is going to want to coach this team with Nick Saban down the road, knowing you're going to get your butt whooped by Alabama for the next however long Saban decides to stay here? Alabama was #1 in recruiting this week. Auburn, they're losing recruits left and right. I mean, this Auburn program is in shambles right now. I mean, it is just collapsing in itself.
I want to give you a name here and see how you respond to it.
Okay.
Will Muschamp.
No.
You don't see Will Muschamp getting a shot.
I don't see it. And I think the only reason I don't see it is because of what happened to him at Florida. They just didn't have Will Muschamp to his, he got him to an SEC title game. Didn't he? I'm pretty sure he did, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
But again, just his record there wasn't great. He didn't have a great relationship with the AD, and he was dismissed because of it. So, look, I think if you're talking about a guy to come in, a lot of people are saying Hugh Freeze. I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to be that guy either. And I know a lot of people really want that, but I think they already kind of took a risk with Bruce Pearl as their basketball coach. So I don't think they're going to want to take another chance on a football guy like that, like Hugh Freeze. So again, it's being dead serious, talking to people around here and hearing what I've heard. This Auburn program is a mess, and they're going to have to hire somebody really big. And if Kevin Steele gets this job, Auburn's going to be probably bad for the next several years. I don't see any way Auburn is going to bounce with Kevin Steele until they decide to get a real coach in there to make stuff happen. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. James had to step away, so I guess he had to step away. I don't know if you got a few minutes extra. If not, I understand.
Yeah, man. Of course.
I like something tells me that with this Gator team and the way they, it's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of team that you never really know what to expect. I mean, seriously. I mean, 1 minute the offense is playing great, and the next minute they're dinking and dunking, and you don't know what to expect. I mean, why is it? I don't know. I mean, insight.
It's tough. It's really tough. Again, I just go back to they have not had real leadership in that program for a long time. And listen, Gus Malzahn, you could say what you want about him. I mean, he had Cam Newton. He had a great player. They didn't have a great.
I love Gus Malzahn. I thought Gus Malzahn was a perfect guy for that job.
I loved Gus Malzahn. Well, I didn't love him, but I liked him as a coach until a couple weeks ago, and I think that's where he lost his job. I mentioned it to you last week when I was on, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. When he sat there in that press conference, and he said that they were about to win 6 games this year, and they were okay with that, there's a problem. Because that means you are accepting being mediocre. And that is just not something a coach needs to say. I had a problem with it as soon as he said it. And he's tried to defend it since, but I think that the university didn't like it. Fans didn't like it. I mean, it was difficult. So it's just a terrible situation in Auburn, man. It's I don't know how you bounce back.
But did he quantify the statement with saying something like, with this team that we have, 6 wins, it's going to be okay? I mean, I don't know if that came out, but given what Auburn is going through and everything, I mean, I get what you're saying in Auburn. Right. I don't know,
I don't know. And whoever leads this team, Animal, they're going to have their hands full because recruiting is not good and the team is not good. Bo Nix is not good. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot of pieces outside of one really good wide receiver in Seth Williams, and that's it.
Wait a minute. Bo Nix is not good. I mean,
no, he's not.
This was a guy that was supposed to be a Heisman Trophy winner, James. Come on.
Terrible. There's a reason they call him Bo Picks because that's all he does is throw interceptions. Like, he's not a good, Animal. He's not a good quarterback at all. He's not. He can't win. He can't win. Now, he'll look good against, like, terrible teams like Arkansas. I know they put the whooping on LSU a month ago, but he's not good. He's not consistent, and he's not a Heisman quarterback. He's not.
I found it interesting. I was reading somewhere about the top 10 quarterbacks coming out in the draft. They had Kyle Trask listed as 6, and ironically, the number 7th guy, Felipe Franks. So I found that to be interesting. 2 former quarterbacks rated in the top 10 to come out in the NFL draft. So I found that to be interesting. Listen, thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the show. I would love to talk longer, but I know you got things that you got to do. Plug your show that you have coming up.
Yeah, tomorrow night, Tide 100.9. You can see right down here. Right. We have a free app you can download if you're not in the Alabama, Tuscaloosa area, of course. Tomorrow night, man, we got a loaded show. We got the Alabama athletic director, Greg Byrne, joining us. We have the voice of the Crimson Tide, Eli Gold, joining us. And we also have Aaron Torres from Fox Sports that's joining us tomorrow, too. So
speaking of
Eli, a jam-packed show.
And speaking of Eli Gold, he missed the Alabama game last week because he came down with COVID. What's the latest on him? Have you heard anything? I'm sure you talk about that.
Yeah, I actually we actually interviewed him earlier in the week because he's got a lot of stuff going on tomorrow. So the interview is a pre-recorded interview, which is fine. But right. We did confirm with him he will be back Saturday. He's already been cleared. He was clear I think on Monday or Tuesday. So he's good to go, and he's really excited to be back, and there's a lot of people who are really excited to hear him.
And one more thing before we go for Gator fans, I know this show is about football and everything, but there was a very tragic incident that took place last Saturday, and when Florida was playing Florida State in basketball, as their players were coming out of a timeout, Keontae Johnson. Well, I believe that's his name, Keontae Johnson. All of a sudden, just fainted, just fell right to the floor, face first. Was taken to a hospital in Alabama. In Tallahassee. They medically induced coma him. Now he's back in Florida, and last word we hear, he's doing great. He's up and talking. So that's some good news that we want to bring about here tonight. So even though.
Yeah. And listen, I'm gonna tell you real quick, Animal, just a sidebar to that. I was thinking about that all week, and my thoughts and prayers have been out to them and to Florida. Just a terrible situation that took place there, and man, it was tough. It was tough to watch. It was really tough to see the players' reaction, to see guys just, crying and being very emotional.
Did you see the actual moment that it happened?
I didn't. No, I don't think that. Did they actually show it? Because I don't think they showed it.
Well, I was able to see it later on, and what happened was he had just come and he was just standing up in a huddle, and all of a sudden he just fell face first on the ground. I mean, it was just like an instant. I mean, yeah, that was a very, very, very scary incident, and thank God he's okay. And I regardless of whether you're a Crimson Tide, Auburn Tiger, whatever the case may be, when it comes to injuries and something like that, I think the players, schools band together because they want their players to be healthy. Make no mistake about it.
Absolutely.
Give me a score.
Oh my God. I haven't really. Well, I've been so far. I'm actually going to the game. I'm actually. I know. I'm sorry. I'm actually going. I'm actually going to the game to do coverage.
You got a commercial for the game.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm excited, man. I can't wait to be there. It's the first time I've ever been to one, so that's it'll be really fun. But look, I as I've said before, I think Florida will make it. Will make an effort. I don't see them lasting 4 quarters. It may be close at the beginning of the game, but I just don't think that that Florida has enough to stay with it. So I'm going to go 48-21. I think this is really the spread right now. I think is around 17, maybe 13, somewhere in there. So I think they Alabama plus the points. So I'm going to say 48-21, and I mainly because I just don't think Florida has enough defensively to keep up with the top 2 Heisman candidates, first of all, and someone who could be a potential 3rd candidate in Najee Harris. I don't think Florida defensively after last week is going to be playing at the same type of level. They'll make it close in the beginning of the game, I think, Animal, but I for quarters, give me Alabama because they're just built differently to last. I really believe that.
I'm of the mindset that I think that Florida's been sandbagging all year to wait to get to Alabama, then show what they're really about.
That would be amazing. Now listen, I cover Tide, and I'm all about Alabama. Don't get me wrong, but what I really would like to see is this game be competitive. I don't want to see a blow.
I'll tell you what. First of all, I think Alabama's. I think you're right. I think Alabama's going to win the game. As much as breaks me to say that, considering I'm a diehard Gator fan. But I'm going to tell you what. I think the Gators have some. I think Grantham and the Florida Gator defense has something surprisingly in store for this team, and I think that we're going to see a much closer game. I don't see a 48-21 game. I see more like maybe a 24-21, 30-27, 30-21, something like that. I do not see a blowout. I see a very
close. A hot take, Animal. That's what we in the radio business call a hot take.
Okay, well, I'm giving you my hot take here tonight. I think a close game. I'm going to call it 30-24, and Bama wins it, but Florida keeps it very tight till the very end. But that's just my prediction there.
Boy, that would be. I'm going to tell you, if I were at a game like that Saturday, I'd be elated. I really would. I would love. I would love it.
Well, since you love it so much, you want to join me next week and we'll recap the game?
Yes, absolutely. Dial me in. I'll be here.
So, are you giving me a commitment right here now?
I am confirming. Yes, I am confirming that I will be here next. Even though it's Christmas Eve, Animal, are you going to be on Christmas Eve?
Ooh, I forgot about
and then the week after that is New Year's Eve. So are you going to be on New Year's Eve too?
We're not going to be on New Year's Eve. I am glad you mentioned that. Are you free on Tuesday? Or are you tied up? I mean,
Tuesday. Well, no. Tuesday will be good. I can do Tuesday. Okay. Let's do Tuesday.
I tell you what, let's do then. Okay, since we're talking here now, what Animal Football Insider's gonna I forgot about it being Christmas Eve. We're gonna be back on Tuesday night. We'll discuss the SEC championship game with James. We'll also discuss the Buck game in Atlanta against the Atlanta Falcons. And any other news that may come out of college football. And
hopefully we'll be discussing Northwestern upsetting Ohio State. That would be amazing.
Here's you know what? Here's what I think could very well happen. Because let's keep in mind, because we're talking about games. earlier on we were talking about games that's going to be happening. Let's keep one thing in mind. Notre Dame and Clemson play head-to-head Saturday.
I can't wait. It'll be such a good game.
I think that's going to be the game of the day. And if it by any chance the Notre Dame beats Clemson
again,
and let's just say for sake, okay, I know you don't want to hear it, but let's just say Florida beats Alabama. Let's just say it happens, okay? And would Florida be considered a playoff contender? I know they're 11th seed right now. Would you put them in the playoff?
Well, you know that Florida only dropped down one spot. They moved down to 7. They're 7th in the country right now.
Yeah, okay. That's right.
So I think it's tough because you could make an argument for Texas A&M because Texas A&M beat Florida and their only loss was to Alabama. So you could technically make an argument with them, but at the same time, I think it depends on what the score of the game is, Notre Dame and Clemson. Because if Clemson comes out and they lose a game by 3, I think you don't push Clemson out, even with 2 losses. Because both losses would have been against Notre Dame, one of those in overtime, and then you would technically have your second loss by 3. I still think they're one of the 4 best teams at that point because it's not about records. That's one thing I learned last week from Heather Dinich from ESPN. It's not about records with this committee. It's about who are the 4 best teams in the country. And I think the only spot that we're really looking at right now is that 4th spot. I think Alabama, even if they lose this game to Florida, they're still going to be in regardless. Notre Dame and Clemson, I think they're still going to be in regardless of what happens, even if Clemson loses to Notre Dame, but it's close by, let's say, 3 in the last minute or something like that. Now, if it's a blowout and Clemson loses by like 20 or 15, 2 touchdowns, then you open things up a little bit. And I'm telling you, the committee's been really high on Iowa State. I don't know why, because they lost to Louisiana, who's terrible. So, I mean, I don't know. It's very difficult for me, but it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. We're going to find out Saturday night. The Clemson Notre Dame game will be at 3 p.m. Central. Alabama Florida game will be on at 6 p.m. Eastern time. As we close it out, James, I love it. As we close it out, I want to thank James Britbuck Wilson for joining me. James Luderman, Shane Matthews, former Gator quarterback. We'll be back. You like that? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
We're going to be back Tuesday night, 7:30 Central Time. James Luderman will be with us.
I'm tripping in orange and blue. Tripping in orange and blue. Tripping in orange and blue. Tripping in orange and blue.
That's what you guys will be doing Saturday night. Mark my word.
Well, listen, if that happens, Animal, if that happens, you're playing Alabama's coach on this show again on Tuesday night.
We'll find out. James, thank you very much for joining me. Have a good one. That's James. I'm the Animal. So long, people.
Ain't no Nike, we switched up the Jordan. Make it play, cause we player made. All the championship that we hoard. Pouring on drink in the Gatorade. No fly interception, that's a repo. Caught the ball in one knee like I'm Tebow. Then I take it to the house like I'm Lito. Hey, walked in, think I'm big money.
See y'all next Tuesday.
Everybody in the crowd get a champion. We gon' get live.